do a new roll call, just so it's all in one piece. Who do we have?
Everyone but Stephen. Oh, and Suzanne. Oh, no, there's Suzanne.
Suzanne, you said?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. No, yeah, just everyone but Stephen.
That's so unusual.
Stephen had a roast in the oven he had to go get.
He was early last time for
Yeah.
the executive session.
He may be in the same place that Rev and I were in before.
Yeah.
The twilight zone of meetings.
I didn't see him in the lobby.
There he is.
Stephen Spicer's here now.
Okay, I think the stream is live.
Yes, we are.
Okay, so we are going to call the meeting to order again, and the clerk will call the roll, please.
Reverend Childs? Reverend
He might-
Childs, can you hear me?
Is he muted?
I don't know.
I'm here.
Oh,
There we
good.
go.
Dr. Jacobowitz?
Here.
Ms. Jordan?
Here.
Mr. Lamb?
Here.
Ms. Lau?
Here.
Mr. Michael? Mr. Michael?
I'm here.
Okay. Mr. Shaughnessy?
Here.
Ms. Shear?
Here.
Mr. Spicer? Okay.
I just saw a little square that said he was trying to join the meeting.
I
Yeah.
think he was, yeah, I don't know what happened to him though.
I think he's in the wrong meeting.
Okay, well, he'll join us. So we have 8 members present. Quorum, we'll rise for the pledge. You don't have to, I guess, but I pledge allegiance
To the
to the
flag.
flag
To the
of the
flag
United States of
of
America,
the United States of
To the
America,
Republic.
to the republic
Stands
for which it stands,
one nation,
one nation,
under God,
under God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
with
with liberty and justice for all.
Somehow I got lost.
Because so many people are talking, I know.
Okay. So I guess we should have. So just to announce to the public that we are operating under
Stress.
suspension of provisions of board policies 1230, 2310, 2320, 2342 regarding public attendance at meetings, video conferencing, and public participation meetings for tonight's board meeting and all future and other meetings held until the state of emergency no longer exists in New York State due to COVID-19. And that was a policy that we adopted at our last meeting, but I'll just read it again so anyone who wasn't at the last meeting knows how we are operating. Okay, so there's no public session. We did have an executive session, and there were no actions pertaining to executive session. The next item on the agenda is approval of minutes for March 18th, 2020. I have a motion.
So moved.
Second,
Moved in second. Is there any corrections or comments? Okay, hearing none. All in favor of adopting the minutes of March 18th, 2020, please say aye.
aye.
Opposed, say nay. Abstentions? Unanimously adopted. Well, not unanimously adopted by everyone here. 8-0.
No,
Stephen has
Oh,
joined
Stephen's
us.
in? Okay, good. 9-0. We now have the superintendent's report, update on school closings. Well, Dr. Petalino.
Thank you, Mr. Shaughnessy. Okay, this is more of an update on operations, not really so much an update on closings, but so just to let everyone know some of the highlights of the details. Food has been one of the biggest discussions. As you all know, we have, partnered now starting today with the county and the city and the Kingston Emergency Food Collaborative. And today we put out 777 meals. So that's a significant increase from our daily meals that we've been putting out. So we're really excited to have those 500 plus meals that we're making in our kitchens delivering to the collaborative, and they're distributing them out into the community. We're working together with the county to see, and the city to see if there are other ways we can streamline this to get even more out. But even with that, I think it's important to know over 26 days we have distributed more than 11,000 meals to students. So this is just a way to jump it up, and we're excited that we're going to be able to do that. Hopefully these numbers will continue to rise, and we'll get food to every student and out there who needs it. A lot of question going on about grading, of course, and that makes a lot of sense. I mean, this is a different world we're living in, and what's the grading going to be for students on report cards? We are working with our teachers and our administrators to come up with a plan that is fair to all students, and that under our I think this is a theme. We hear our governor say it, and we're going to say it also. Our theme here is do no harm. So we're creating a system and a calculation, I think, that will do no harm, given the fact of the inequities of what's going on right now and different levels of ability to participate and function in the online learning that we have. So I will have that out to the board prior to our next board meeting. Actually, the Teaching and Learning Committee, I met with the Kingston Teachers Federation today. They're in agreement on it. Now it's just a matter of putting it all together in writing to then present to parents, students, and to the Board of Education. Accessibility has been a question, kind of goes right in with the grading. You've heard me say before, we distributed more than 1,500 Chromebooks. And now on top of distributing them, now our tech team is engaged in retrieving some, replacing them for ones that aren't working or have been broken, and some repairs have already been done, and then redistribution. So they're just giving them out wasn't the end of the story. Giving them out and then making sure that they continue to work and that our students can use them is another part of it. Obviously, you all know about the Spectrum deal that was, we had some concerns over some of the requirements for our students and their families to get the free Wi-Fi. We were able to speak with some of the executives and the people on the ground from Spectrum, and using our our technology team and Gary Tomzik, as well as a community member, Marjorie Leopold, who was helping us in these conversations. We were able to convince them to put aside all of the requirements, and basically all students now have to do, families have to do now, is call Spectrum, tell them they need the modem for the hookup. It'll be sent to them, and they will have free Wi-Fi during this time of closure. So we're excited that that's going to happen. I think that's really going to boost our attendance. While it's difficult to take attendance at this time, we are estimating, some of our elementary schools are being able to get a little better grasp on things. I mean, our lowest is in the 60s, but by and large at the elementary, I think our average is more in the mid 70s. So that's really not too bad considering this big change. At the high school, we're running somewhere between 65 and 70. But again, that's a more difficult thing to track, because we do have some students signing in and watching when it's not, when things aren't live, and some students watching, later on in the day and those kind of things. But we're working on some different practices and some different programs to try to find a better way to get a real grab on attendance. But we're pretty pleased with what we've seen so far, given the situation, and I think the Spectrum increase in the Spectrum Wi-Fi for people is going to put that up even higher. A lot of questions about graduation. Everyone wants to know, are we going to have a graduation ceremony? I don't know. There's a lot of people want to know, are we coming back to school? Are we having graduation? I don't know. Obviously our graduation ceremony would not comply with social distancing practices and requirements, but we are working to figure out a plan that if we don't return, what would we do for our seniors? So we're going to work with our class advisors at the high school, our high school administration, as well as the rest of the cabinet here to come up with some ideas of things we can do for students if we aren't able to have a graduation. Then there was the question, well, maybe we can graduate in August. Well, I think we need to assume that if we can't graduate in June, we need to do something right then. Doing something in August, you lose students. Some students go off to work or to the military, and so we would like to do something for our students right in June. So we're working on that right now, and we'll have that finalized prior to the May deadline, and then we'll know whether we're coming back or not. Awards and scholarships is another question. I get a lot of emails and a few phone calls from parents about what are we doing with awards and scholarships. Kingston High School and Miss Bonneville are working on a plan to make sure that the scholarships still, the essays and all the applications still come in, and that the awards are given out to their students and that the students are recognized. So we're working on a plan for that, again, with the class advisors and the Kingston High School administration. Reopening, a lot of talk about reopening the economy, reopening this, reopening that, but what about reopening schools? So we're talking about that also. Dr. Corey at Ulster Bosse's has created a task force to start talking about reopening, because obviously just countywide, we need to kind of act together, and there's a lot of different things. Obviously, each district will do things a little bit differently, but we do need some coordination, and Bosse's is really that vehicle to help us with that coordination, and they're the people who probably need us to be coordinated the most, because we do all send students there, at the same time from different districts. So we're going to work with that task force with Dr. Corey. But we've also met as a cabinet and started knocking around ideas, looking at what happens if we come back in May and we still have social distancing and those kind of things. I've been going through our numbers and our projected numbers for next year, thinking what would we need to do to comply with a social distancing model if that were the case when we came back to school. So we're coming up with several different ideas. Obviously, they would all be new, different, and hybrid in some way. But we have a lot of different ideas. But we get a little bit closer. We want to, again, engage our administration, engage our teachers, and talk to them about what are some ideas of things that we can do to make it work for students if we are put in that position. I know if we come back in May, we are going to be in that position. It's hard to believe we would be out of social distancing protocols that soon. September, I don't know. But I still think even with coming back in September, if all the requirements around social distancing were lifted, we're still going to have a very different kind of opening. So we're working on several different scenarios. A May opening with restrictions, a September opening with restrictions, and a September opening without restrictions. So we'll have those together, and again work with our teachers and our administrators to make sure we have everyone's voice heard and everyone have input, because that's really what we need, and we'll be able to have a plan. And again, obviously the May plan is our first priority. That one's going to be a little less inclusive just because we have so little time, but we'll have that together soon. September, we have a little more time to work on that, but it's any way you cut it, this is going to be a difficult restart of school. Accountability from the State Education Department as far as our performance and the accountability protocols. The accountability status for all schools will remain the same next year, so there will be no accountability measures used for the 2019-2020 school year. So basically, if you were, if you were TSI or CSI now, you're going to be next year. You're not coming out. You're not getting any deeper into it. So we're kind of just holding status quo. So that's the message we received today. So everything will stay the same around that. Our continuity of learning plan, which is our education plan that you've all seen that we have up on our website, and we've had to submit to the State Education Department. That will be, we are going to have to submit an updated continuity of learning plan to the State Education Department. We're waiting for the portal to open, so we have an idea of what actually has to happen for that. The first time through was a little bit more of a checklist with some very small, narratives. They knew we were on a very short timeline. Again, we have about 48 hours to put that together. We're being told we're going to be given a little more time to put this one together, which also indicates to me that maybe we're looking at a longer closure than just May. So we're waiting for that to open up, and we feel like we already have the plan, and we just need to upload our documents, because we didn't stop at the brief plan that was asked by the state education department. We went much more in depth, but we're working on that and being ready for that. That plan will also be required to be put out to the public. We did put our plan out to the public when we did it 5 weeks ago. So we have no problem with that. We will be putting it out to the public, and that's a relatively new requirement, but we have no problem with that. We've been doing that. Also, APPR, as of this moment, there's been no change in the APPR law. So we have to move forward as if we have to continue to do our evaluations and observations, but much of the rating will not, this is going to be a no rating year for our teachers, because this testing has all been canceled. Much of the scores for our teachers, when you look at their APPR scores, involve a calculation that is part of our standardized tests from the state, which aren't existing this year. But as of right now, we need to continue with our observation and evaluations using our rubric. What their total score is reported to the state, that's not the concern right now. I did meet with, like I said, with KTF, with the Kingston Teachers Federation today. We're in an understanding that this is a little bit different, a little bit strange. We also both know that the state education department's request to have this suspended for the year is on the governor's desk and requires an executive order, because this is law. This isn't the state education department regulation. So we're waiting to hear. I know the governor's got a lot of things he's looking to put into executive orders and a lot of other things to do, but we're hoping that his staff will help him get to that and put out an executive order to suspend that. It's a difficult thing for us to do this year, especially given the online learning that we're doing.
Dr. Padalino,
Yes, Mr. Spicer.
how does that impact our tenure process?
Well, for this year, I don't feel like it impacts it very much at all. For this year, we've already been to that. We're already there. Any teacher who's receiving tenure, the decision has already been made. The principals have already sent in their letters recommending tenure. Anyone who was not being awarded tenure was notified back on April 1st. So we're already past that. Now next year, that's a different conversation, right? So we missed a 3-month period, basically almost half a year period of evaluations and observations. So I think that's a conversation I'm going to have with KTF, and also look for guidance on if there is updates to the APPR law.
Understood. Thank you.
You're welcome. Last thing, so moving on from the school closing. So any questions around the school closing report, other than Mr. Spicer's?
I'd like to go back to graduation for a minute.
Sure.
As a senior parent, I'm getting a lot of phone calls and questions about that. And one of the parents that was a former board member, and some other people have made comments about, are we going to have parent involvement in what the decision is that we're going to do?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're going to look for involvement from everyone. I think we're going to need new ideas. I've had a few exchanges and emails with parents as well. We're willing to hear from anyone and everyone on this. We're looking around also, because a lot of school districts in the country graduate long before we do. So there might not be a need to reinvent the wheel. Some other schools might be doing it better and than we can think of, or in a way that we can think of. I know some schools are also doing certain things, and I looked at them and thought, well, it's very different to do some things for a graduating class of 80 than it is to do for a graduating class of 530. So there's some practical realities to that. But we'll definitely get input from anyone and everyone that we can on this.
Thank you.
Other questions on that topic? Okay, just to give you a brief budget report, we still have no date for a budget vote or a board election vote. We really are awaiting more guidance next week regarding the look back on the revenues that the state is going to be doing. And we're also waiting to hear on a possible third stimulus. We were hoping there would be money for schools in the second stimulus. There was not. But that we're being told that Tuesday, we should be hearing a lot more about the stimulus number 3, and that there will be money for schools there. Right now, we are playing darts in the dark. You know, we're trying to hit a bullseye that we can't see because we really don't know what our revenues are. They may be more than what we're expecting. They may be less. So we're making several different scenarios. Every one of the scenarios is targeted to save programs and save people. You know, we really don't want to have layoffs at this point in time, and we really don't want to lose programs for our students, obviously. So we're working that. It's really it's like I said, it's a difficult challenge. We're running to a finish line that keeps moving. And sometimes you think we're to the finish line and then it moves ahead. And so we're a little bit at the mercy of some information that we don't have at this point. Again, this year our revenues are going to be very important. I mean, before this whole thing happened, we were having a small issue as far as not a small issue, a pretty sizable issue as far as a budget gap. Now with reduction in aid from the last run and the possibility of continuous reductions in aid throughout the year next year, we've got a lot of different things to look at and a lot of planning to do as far as how we allocate our funding. So we really need to see those revenues to find out if we're getting more or if we're not getting more before we can really pin it down. Right now, we figure we have a hole of about $3.5 million. And we're working on closing that gap, but it would be helpful to have, you know, solid numbers. This is what you're getting next year. But the fact of the matter is we're not going to get that because with these quarterly look backs on revenues from the state level, our aid could change in the middle of the school year. Excuse me. So next time we talk, we'll have a budget, probably pretty close to a budget for you. We don't, again, not knowing when the budget vote is, moves all of those timelines to a different point. So by now you should have them tonight. I would be giving you our budget for May, but we don't know when the election is. So again, all those timelines have been moved, and we're just kind of in a, you know, we're working, we're doing our due diligence, we're looking at things that we might have to do, prioritizing cuts if we have to make them, and hoping for, you know, good news on the revenue side.
Dr. Petalino, do we have any idea how much we might lose in each look back? And there are 4 look backs throughout the year. They said quarterly, correct?
4 look backs, no, we don't know. It all depends on the percentage of revenues that come into the state. So if it doesn't reach that 90% revenue for the state, then the state's going to go in and look and see how much they're going to pull away to make it to that revenue, you know, the state revenue that they need to get to.
So we'll just need to make adjustments quarterly as well?
Correct. You know, it's one of those situations where we may want to talk about adding more fund balance into our revenues that at the end of the year ends up being unexpended, you know, allocations that goes back into a fund balance or reserves, just so we have that, so we don't end up with mid-year layoffs and things like that that some of you probably remember happened back in the early 90s.
Mm-hmm.
How do we do that when they cut funding in the middle of the year and we have contracted people?
Yeah,
and services.
Yeah, we have contracted people, but we can lay off in the middle of the year if we need to lay off. I mean, if we have budgetary issues, I mean that's completely within our, you know, our ability and our authority to take layoffs if we can't afford to you know, pay our employees.
So would it be conveyed to, say, probationary people that, you know, they may be laid off at any point during the year?
Yeah, I mean, I'm hoping not. Yeah, I'm kind of hoping we can craft a budget that won't require those kind of conversations. But I think that's a conversation to have with the Kingston Teachers Federation in about a week. I think a week from now we're gonna have a lot more information than we do right now.
Okay.
And Dr. Petalino, last time there was federal stimulus that we used to bolster the budget, there were some pretty tight strings attached to it, I'm sure you remember. And so I'm wondering if you have a sense from that level, from the federal perspective, like if this will just be, well, is it going to be free money, or are we going to have to go through race to the top hoops or something similar?
That era money, that's what you're referring to, the the Recovery Act money, the ERA money that we received a few years ago, did have some very tight strings around it. I'm not sensing that's the case this time around. Again, but I'm not sure. I'm not getting, like I said, I'm not getting the sense that that's the kind of program they're looking at, especially given the timeline. I mean, they spent a long time putting ERA together and putting together those requirements. I think that they're just trying to make the state's revenues whole and allow those states to then fund school districts as the way they think they need to be funded. So I know this has gotten a lot of attention at the federal level of schools getting money, not the state getting money and filling their, making sure the state is whole prior to making sure the schools are whole. It was very targeted as far as making sure schools get money. But again, that has to go through that whole process, and I guess it's going to be next week. But no, I don't foresee another ERA.
Okay, I'm not hearing it either. I was just wondering if there was other scuttlebutt that I was missing.
Dr. Padalino, do we have enough positions that we're losing because of retirements that perhaps will aid in helping the budget a bit if we don't replace those people right away and then have to lay them off? Are we just looking at every possibility of utilizing our existing staff?
Yes, we are. I mean, when I say no layoffs, that doesn't mean no cuts. When I say no layoffs, that means we're looking at attrition. So if we need to eliminate positions, we want to eliminate positions that people have vacated through retirement. So right now we're doing that puzzle work of looking to see what certification areas do we have, putting those in categories of teachers who are retired.
I know, they don't always match.
Right, so sometimes they match, sometimes they don't, but we have to take a look at how that works out. And again, what our class size is going to look like in this type of certification class if we don't replace one of these, say it's a science teacher, there's 2 science teachers, replace one up there. What do we have to do to spread those class sizes across 4 sections instead of 5 or 7 sections instead of 8? That's the kind of exercise that we're doing right now.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
I believe the governor announced that when we do have elections, the school elections will be 100% by absentee ballot.
There's a lot of talk about that, and one of the things, that would, right now, for example, the election law says someone has to request an absentee ballot. So they would have to give us some guidance around, does that mean we just send absentee ballots to every registered voter in the city of Kingston or in the Kingston City School District? Are people going to have to request absentee ballots before we mail them to them? So these are all things that I think that they need to work out. We had talked before, and I think people have heard the rumors of the possibility of not having an election, where maybe if you stayed at or below the tax levy limit, that the board could just vote on the budget. I've been told that is completely off the table, that the state government is very committed to voters having the right to vote and voting on things that they're supposed to vote on. So we are expecting some guidance around how people will vote and how they would deal with an absentee ballot type voting without people in person. An in-person vote is going to be a huge problem for us and for every school in the county, because if we're looking past June into mid to late June, we're competing with the primary, and we won't have voting machines.
Yeah.
So it's a whole new level of trouble on top of all the other trouble we have.
Dr. Padalino, also, what about the candidates running for the board? Because there's no way they're getting the number of signatures they need, and we need to make sure that we have candidates that can run.
I agree. I asked that question today in a meeting that I was in. No one has answers right now. No one has, solid answers on anything that has to do with our budget vote, our board elections. We're guessing.
Could I ask a question? Because I understood one of the things that was sent out last week had to do with postponement in the vote and that there would be more guidance following it, but that it also was for qualifying petitions. So that there was a postponement. They wouldn't be due on April 29th, but they would be due at some point after that, once they decide when the vote will take place
Right.
or
Yeah.
how.
All of the timelines, from the timeline of when I need to present to the board, to the time I need to present to the board the budget itself for your adoption, to when petitions are due, to our 45-day notice in the newspaper, all those things obviously are being pushed back, but we don't have a date to push them back to.
Right.
So we're just kind of waiting.
Well,
If they say it's June 23rd, we can push
Or
things
June
back.
1st. That's all we know. June 1st or after, right?
Yeah, June 1st or after. So that could be June 1st, that could be June 29th.
If you work for June 1st, the petitions would be due sometime during the second week of May. And I don't know if people will be able to get out and get
No,
signatures.
I know. And I think there has to be some understanding of that when we get more guidance, and I'm sure there will be.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I want to make a clarification, because when I said a little while ago that we did 777 meals today, we did 777 distributions. We did 1,554 meals today. So
Wow.
Wow.
But oh no, hold it. That doesn't conclude my report. We have our KHS Second Century project update sent to us by our people at KSQ and BBL. Actually, this is from BBL, I believe. We are trying some new technology, so bear with us. We're going to try to put it up on the board while we go through it. And believe it or not, yes, construction continues, and we are moving forward with our Kingston High School project. And as I told you last meeting, we're moving forward with our capital or our facilities review as well. And we are still, gearing up to do the two projects that we're going to do at JFK and Miller, and a little bit at Edson, actually, this spring and summer. So we'll start here and go on. Here's the construction updates. I won't read the whole thing to all of you, but we are we're just doing the little things on the first and second floors over at Kingston High School, getting ready to move everyone from Winston Tobin over there. Anybody who's been by the building, you can see we're doing some exterior work, pulling up some trees. I think there's some pictures about that, ripping out some old trees in front of the building and those kind of things. Landscaping there's in the bottom. So just go back to one slide for me, please, Karen. Oh, forget it, we can't. So we won't go back to that slide, but I have it here in front of me, so I'll tell you.
There we go.
Okay. So the abatement of Winston Tobin will take place in April. So then that work continues. We're continuing to the bottom floor, but the Winston Tobin abatement will be in April, and then we'll start knocking it down as we move forward into the summer. Okay, now you can move. Thanks. Just kind of the checklist. Auditorium, you all know, is done. First and second floor in the nurses area and the east side of the building are done. Students will be able to reoccupy if they came back to school on May 18th. We would be ready to reoccupy that space. The ground floor west will be done in April 2020. Ground floor east, June. We're already in April 2020. We're past April 2020, so that's already, the ground floor west is done. East, we're looking at June. Demo will be completed, starting this spring and summer, but completed in the fall. And the music wing, as we said before, completed in the spring, so we're looking at almost a full year before the first and second floor of West and the music wing are done. Just some pictures. This is a classroom in the main building that's done. We've got a bathroom that are completed. This is the new nurse's office area, which is
Wow.
much improved.
Looks nice.
I know there was some concerns about location because we are down on the bottom floor there, but this was the best space, and also it allows us to do many different things there. We're discussing the possibility of a satellite nurse's office up in the building itself if that is necessary, so to make sure that we can respond quickly if there are emergencies. But this, if you go to the next slide, see, much different on your left. we got rooms for kids, we've got just much better space. Over on the right is the temporary vice principal's office for Miss Montano, while we go through the work in the main building. Just some new ceiling grids being put up. Some more stuff in student bathrooms that are being put together. There's, if you look to your left, that's the roots and the trees being dug up in front of Main. So again, exposing the former glory of that building. I gotta be honest with you, I'm not sure where that stairway is right there. But we go to the next one. So that's the wood. You look at that, you say that looks terrible, but the trim and the wood there is all being restored at this time. So that's the picture, just kind of showing you that. If you saw it yourself, it would be it would look much better than it does in this picture. You're not getting the full effect. Next. Okay, some of the things, just give you some updates on where we are with our capital improvements at Miller Middle School and JFK. We're getting the materials and supplies that we need, and there's just kind of on your right, just give you a little bit of an idea. Window replacement's going to start summer 2020. Miller parking lot, spring of 2020. Some of these things we might be able to start a little earlier than expected. I'll let you know after May. We're also trying to work with state ed and with our architects and project managers to see is there any way we can get some of this work done now while we are in this, and let's get ahead of the game. The Edson boiler abatement would be something we'd really like to be able to get done. Obviously the boilers aren't going to be used regardless of whether we come back or not, but we would love to be able to do abatement work while students aren't in the building. So a lot of different things we're looking at. The Miller auditorium chairs, they're being made, but we'll have them soon. So we're hoping to get ahead of the game. If there could be anything good that came out of this, at least that it would be good that we could get ahead of the game with this project. And that's it. And if there's any questions, I'll try to answer them. And if I can't answer them, I'll get them to Mike, Carly, and Armand, and they can answer, and I can get back to you with them.
So if we come back on May 18th, they enter the high school, and their classes that were in Tobin Winston are suddenly, do they all know where they're going?
Yes. Yeah, they were prepared. Well, I think they do. I shouldn't say it for sure. We've tried to prepare them for that, and I think that Vince and his team Mr. DeSico and his team will do a job to make sure they communicate that out there. They won't be able to get to Winston Tobin, so if they try to go there, they're going to run into some hard wall barriers.
Yeah, I think they'll need reminding.
Yeah.
Having a first-year student who's in Winston Tobin, I'm pretty sure he doesn't
Well, I
know.
think after almost 3 months off of school, they're going to need reminding about a lot of things.
Yeah, that's probably true.
But this
That's
will
probably
be one of them. Our maintenance team is working right now, moving things out of Winston Tobin, getting them into the classrooms that they need to be into, and getting us ready. So if we're to start on May 18th, we're going to be ready.
I think finding their new space could be part of their evaluation.
Well, it looks great. I think it's really exciting, and those bathrooms in Maine, I've just been so looking forward to having those redone because they just were. There was in dire need, and the nurse station looks great, and I'm glad they've been able to continue the work, and it just looks fabulous.
Yeah, it looks really good, and I think I like the way the outside's coming together. Being able to see the front of the building again is I should say again, I've never seen the front of the building. None of us at this table probably have ever seen the front on this call. I've ever had the front of the building, but I think it'd be nice to have it open like that again.
I also think it's great that they tried to make everything cohesive so that even though it's the old building, it's still being treated in the same way as the new part of the building was.
Yeah.
Well, I think we said 6 years ago that